Okay, so good evening everyone, and welcome to Tara House. My name's John Wright, and in December we've got 3 Monday nights, and I'll be doing 2 out of those 3. At the end of it, I'll talk about what's happening to me next Monday while I'm not here. Anyway, anyone brand new at all? A couple of you, and the rest are Monday night veterans, with barnacles and crusty and old. Anyway, look, I must admit I sat here, I had a fairly solid day today, so I just needed to sort of, how we say, revive myself and draw my mind in a little bit and sort of just switch off from all the outside stuff that you do, when you go to work during the day, come home and cook dinner, whatever else it is that you do. Just to sort of try and center myself and bring my energy in a bit and to revive slightly. So if I feel a bit faded, I'll apologise for that. Hopefully I'll get through without too much of that. Okay, now this, in terms of the topic, topic for tonight was look at this time of year is Christmases are coming upon us. And as we know, even over the last month or so, the stores have been, how do we say, spectacularly spending a lot of time letting us know that Christmas is coming and that we should be spending some of our money in their establishments. So far I've avoided doing that, but I guess it might get more harder. So it's, I guess in our society, Christmas is sort of a conflicting sort of thing. Why is it a conflicting thing? It's got a very deep, I guess, religious meaning to it, but it's also got a very shallow commercial meaning to it, and then a range of other stuff in between. And I guess for the bulk of us, because we've been brought up in Australia, or we live in Australia now, it's got quite strong cultural significance. So even for people who have no interest in Christianity, for example, by and large, they all still celebrate Christmas in one way or other. And it is an opportunity where families can get together. People go away, at the end of the year for work for many people, so you go away on holiday. Presents are exchanged, which may or may not be a good thing. And of course you can have a Christmas dinner or share food or have meals together. So there's some positive aspects to it, I guess, and other aspects that might be challenging. For a lot, especially I guess for a lot of people, there is anticipation and expectation around Christmas, and this idea that Christmas will bring us joy and happiness. And of course the commercial world spends a lot of time trying to spread that idea or convince us that will be the case. So in terms of the whole Christmas thing, we've got the lead-up period to Christmas, and we've got actual Christmas itself. So as I say, with the lead-up, there's a lot of anticipation, a lot of expectation, and there's this build-up of belief that if we engage in Christmas and the Christmas hype, the whole Christmas experience for us is going to be something that will make us happy, will bring lots of joy and happiness to us. Now, just out of curiosity, does anyone have that experience at all? Isn't that interesting? A couple of people. Is there anyone for whom Christmas is the opposite? There's been a traumatic time in their life at some, or difficult, or challenging? Okay, some in that category as well. It's interesting. I was talking to someone the other day and just said, it's a lady who her and her husband travel a lot. And I said, what are you up? He makes a small talk, what are you up to for Christmas? Oh, we're getting away from Christmas as far as we can, as much as we can, until we go on a cruise. And then the explanation was that the husband is a retired policeman. So for him, Christmas is filled with trauma. Because every year at Christmas they have police, AMBOs, nurse, social workers. It's a busy, difficult time of year for them. So in that situation, Christmas doesn't represent a period of joy or happiness or downtime for them. It's the exact opposite in terms of that. I've lost track of a story I had in my mind that was trying to... It's disappeared. It'll come back one day. Oh dear. Probably tomorrow, if I'm lucky. Yes. So look, for some, it's interesting, when we have the gathering together of people at Christmas, and obviously in social, I guess my work environment, etc., you have a lot of people, all the different friends, talking about the obligatory family gathering. And you have to spend time with people you normally don't spend time with. There might be a long history of dislike or animosity, and somehow or other you have to try and put on your best behaviour hat and your best behaviour clothes, and be civil to people that you would prefer not to be civil to. Or I must admit, I can't even think of a Christmas dinner I sat in once time, it sort of went a little bit beyond civility. So eventually there had to be a dramatic change in the conversation to sort of keep things back in line. So Christmas isn't always happiness, and if I think of, I'm a school teacher, still doing it, of course, I don't know why. Well, I shouldn't say that, sometimes it's quite enjoyable, other times you can have a really rough time. But the good news is you get rid of them over Christmas. But this is a horror story. Because one of the things I tend to begin of the year, I get new kids to say, look, get them to fill in a survey form, and then to say, at the end, I'll say, is there anything else I need to know about you? Because I've got kids in front of me, I don't know their background story. Each one has a story or a history, and I don't know what that story or history is. And sometimes that story or history can have a major impact on how that kid operates in class, or how I should be looking after them, or that sort of thing. So I had a kid, this would have been a year 12 biology class, this is more than 30 years ago, so I'm quite a new teacher, relatively inexperienced at that stage, and I just didn't have enough nous to work it out. But she was quite unhappy all year, and she sort of struggled, she got through, never created a problem. And at the end of the year I was talking to another teacher about this kid, I think, and she said, don't you know what happened to this kid, or don't you know the story about this kid? I said, no, I haven't got a clue. So she then proceeded to tell me the story of what happened to this kid. And this is Christmas Day, and probably in the early 1990s or something like that. So there's mum and dad, there's her and her sister at the dinner table, and her uncle. Now, her sister had a genetic condition where under stress she could literally die. So over the Christmas dinner, her dad and his brother had an argument. Over the Christmas dinner, she died. She literally dropped dead at the dinner table, on Christmas. So I've got this kid, 5 weeks later, at that stage her sister's died, her parents are separated, she's not in a fit state to be able to learn, and really needed a lot of nurture and help. And I had absolutely zero idea about that. None at all. Unfortunately, I wasn't experienced enough to have found out or worked it out. So that's an extreme story. But for some people, Christmas is not a happy event. And of course, the whole lead up to Christianity, the commercial hype, all that sort of stuff, is not really the spirit of Christmas either. So if we look in terms of people who are Christians, Christmas for them is a major event, because it celebrates the birth of the founder of their religion. Just like, for example, here at Tara House, we have what's called in Tibetan called Sakadawa, or in Southeast Asia they call Vesak, which is celebrating the birth of the Buddha, who's the founder of our tradition. So for Christians, Christmas is the birth of their founder, and so it's a period of great hope and joy for them. It's also recognition in terms of their belief system that God has actually incarnated as a living being in order to come into the world among people to help them. And that, interestingly enough, corresponds very, very strongly or closely with the Buddhist idea of a bodhisattva. Now, as a bodhisattva is someone, that's a Sanskrit word. If we translate to loosely in English, we could say a dedicated being, or someone whose existence or purpose in life is dedicated to trying to help other living beings to attain a similar level of happiness and joy and understanding of the mind that they have, and has become a fully awakened being, someone who's free from faults and who's developed all their inner quality and potentials there to the absolute fullest. So that's sort of the bodhisattva ideal, and we can see that someone like Jesus Christ really exemplified that ideal and was able to start a worldwide religion which has billions of followers, and this has been going on for 2 millennia or 2,000 years. So for Christians it does have a deep symbolic or spiritual significance. And I know, for example, decades ago when I was at Kopan, I said, look, Kopan is the original centre Lama Yeshe Mamozopa set up on the outskirts of Kathmandu Valley back in the 1970s. Lama Yeshe was a very interesting Lama in that he was very inquisitive to understand Western people. And those days the Western people he came across were all the smoke-doping hippies and backpackers. And quite a few had tried the psychedelic drugs, etc. But he spent a lot of time and effort trying to understand the psychology of Westerners, philosophy of Westerners, that sort of thing. And one of the things that on Christmas Day at Kopan, what they would do is in the morning we'd have a really big Chenrezig puja. So Chenrezig is, look at that image over there, the white one with the pair of arms here and the other pair of arms there. Chenrezig represents the compassion, the enlightened energy of compassion. So it's a visual representation of an enlightened being where compassion is the dominant element, the dominant quality. And for example, we look over, if we look over there, we've got another Manjushri, for example, the sword. So the sword is cutting through ignorance. So this is a symbol or representation, or example of the enlightened quality where the focus is on wisdom. So there are different sort of meditational deeds we can visualise or meditate on. There are reflections of inequalities within our mind. So because within Christianity there was such a strong emphasis on love and compassion, Lama Yeshe always made sure that on Christmas Day there was a big puja, Chenrezig puja that was done. And that was really a really nice way to celebrate Christmas. We didn't have presents, we weren't going to the shops because we were normally retreat at that time, but we'd have a break from the normal routine, do the Chenrezig puja for a couple of hours, then have a nice lunch after that, and then sort of back, I can't remember what happened after that, there was back more to the normal routine. So in that situation, doing that practice gave Christmas, for people who weren't Christians, and in many cases been brought up with Christianity, either as and probably in those days there were really 2 strong Christian versions, the ones who went through the Catholic system and had the experience of Catholic nuns or the Catholic brothers, and then the people who had a Protestant background, which was sort of slightly different. But mostly there were people, and we're talking the late 90s, in the 60s and 70s, growing up in that time, who had rejected the traditional values of Western culture, and who were challenging those values very strongly. So Christianity tended to get thrown out as well, and people often had a negative view of Christianity, or in some cases have probably suffered some trauma or psychological injury as a result of their interaction with probably more, say, Catholicism, and that sort of came with that baggage to Kopan, doing meditation courses. And of course, I guess I'm a product of Kopan, but a lot of people, went through Kopan, and that was a I guess especially in my case, was an absolutely life-changing experience. Because in those days, I'd been through university, I had a professional job, I was highly educated, but in quite a narrow way, and I just had this strong thing that I needed to broaden my education. So I started travelling. And after 18 months of being on the road, I sort of was attracted to Buddhism. I remember being in Indonesia, in Borobudur, at Sakadawa. I said, there's going to be some monks there. So I deliberately hung around. There was some interest to see monks. Only 2 showed up. So that was something that disappointed me. And I didn't connect. A year later, I was in Kathmandu. This is Sakadawa. We hordes of monks around and Tibetans. So I remember wandering around Swaminath Stupa. So you had loads of Tibetans, and it was interesting, but at that stage I still didn't connect. And I did overstay my visa in Nepal by 1 day, but I managed to get out safely. So sometime after I ended up in Ladakh, and Ladakh's it's on the north side of the Himalayas, behind the mountains, so it's very dry, it's very high up. And it wasn't winter, so it wasn't as cold as it could be, but it was peppered with monasteries everywhere. And being about September, which is sort of end of summer heading into autumn, there were lots of families getting pujas done, and getting groups of monks to come and chant prayers and rituals at their houses. So I was absolutely fascinated by that. And I did go to a few monasteries, etc. in the dark and started reading books, and which interested me. So I did have this interest in meditation. So eventually, through a series of coincidences, I did go through Dharamsala. I ended up in Kopan, and probably mid-October, and a month later went and did the course, and I sort of stayed another 5 years after that. And so that's, But it's interesting, but you say Lumley, she sort of really made this strong thing to help people understand that Christianity had value. The values in Christianity, it's in many respects, while the philosophy is different, and there's very marked difference, like we talk about reincarnation, for example. We don't talk about a creator God, although philosophy is very different. But we look at the inner qualities that we're trying to develop, through use of that, whichever philosophical structure we use, the inner qualities are the same. So the quality of love and compassion is the same. The quality of renunciation is the same. The quality in terms of trying to lessen the attachment to the ego and develop some inner wisdom. That's sort of similar sorts of stuff, that we're trying to develop. So Christianity and the whole thing of Christmas, and from a spiritual point of view, does have enormous significance. Now the other side, of course, is we've got the commercial side of Christmas and the cultural side of Christmas. And for some people that can be difficult. And also for us as individuals, because we've got the obligations to buy presents for families. We have to sort of, who's cooking, I have many families, like looking around, some of you are on the older side just like me. You have children, they have partners. It's like, which grandparents do you go to first, which grandparent do you go to second, or who do you go and see on Christmas Day, who do you see the day after, or whatever. So there's all those things that need to be negotiated, which can be tricky for some people. Also, I've got something written here which says the cultural myth of Santa. We indoctrinate our children, or I hate to say we did it to our 2 children, there's this amazing benevolent being or person called Santa. And there's also Mr. Santa, for some reason lives in the North Pole. And if you're very good all year long, they'll give you presents. And it's interesting. It's quite interesting. And of course, even as adults, we still give one another presents in most cases. But look, where I'm sort of leading to is that builds up expectation. Did I get a nice present or a bad present? Did it really give me everlasting happiness? And the reality is most presents don't give you happiness. And I know for me what's interesting, I've got a couple of things that my kids gave me when they were really, really young. So, like one's a little sort of sewn up stuffed toy to them about that size that hangs on my mirror in my car. That thing's probably 20 years old. It's falling apart, it's dusty, but that present has more value to me, not because it costs a lot of money, but because of the intention with which it was given to me. It was given to me with love. It was a very honest, it was given to me. I was trying to skin with love. And there's no expectation or anything else that went, or conditions or anything else that went with it. So for me, that's still special. Yeah, more so than the other things I've received since. Anyway, so look, what I'm trying to lead to here is that the whole thing of receiving gifts, while it can be a nice thing, and also giving gifts, the idea of generosity can be nice. The commercialisation aspect's not good, and the expectation thing's not good, and the belief that these things will give us happiness. And if I don't get them, I will be unhappy. Those sorts of beliefs aren't good. And what I want to trying to challenge here is within Buddhism, a really fundamental tenet or idea is that our happiness does not come from external things. Our happiness comes from what's happening inside ourselves. We create our own happiness, we create our own suffering, we create our own problems. They're not caused externally. So if I have someone who, I think of some of the kids who annoyed me today, do I say, look, that kid made me unhappy? Or do I look and say, okay, how my mind operated is what caused the disturbance. So if I've been patient with that kid and haven't sort of got emotionally disturbed, they don't have the power to influence my happiness. That's my inner power, and that can be my inner strength and inner wisdom. As long as I've got enough inner space within my mind that I can absorb that or process that without it destabilising my own inner stability, my sense of inner calm and peace that's deep within me. And that's one of the things we're trying to do with our understanding of philosophy, whether it's Buddhist philosophy or Christian philosophy, and also our daily practice of meditation and our daily contemplation on what's true and what's not true. So the more we develop our inner wisdom of how our mind works, and that in reality, we've got senses, we've got an eye sense, taste sense, touch sense, hearing sense, and our mental senses or mental consciousness as well. These are influenced by the sense objects, in other words, the objects of the senses, so what I see, hear, taste, touch, or come in contact with through thoughts, for example, mental experience. Okay, so I've got to, with practice, I can learn or develop the ability not to be swayed by the things or allow these things to these experiences to dominate my mind. In other words, I can maintain my sense of calm, openness, and peacefulness, and hopefully a bit of wisdom, understanding the nature of reality, especially understanding that these things are not the cause of my happiness and not the cause of my unhappiness either. Really the cause of that's what's going on inside. So if I've got emotions, negative emotions or disturbing thoughts or disturbing mental energies such as anger arising or pride or arrogance or greed or self-interest or envy, those are the things that disturb my inner well-being. Right? Not the person's outside. The person object inside is a condition. This is true. If I lock myself in a cave or away from disturbing influences, I can have the illusion or sense, yes, I'm peaceful, I'm quiet, my life is good. And it's interesting, people go into retreat and it can seem like it's okay. Then you come out of retreat and go and interact with other people again, and those disturbed states of mind pop up straight away. This person's annoying me. I can't cope with the noise. Or there's too much rush or whatever. And that's an interesting thing. And my thought would almost be, did you do your retreat properly? Is an ideal world, if you've done a retreat or a period of seclusion, when you come out, you should have more inner strength. You have more ability to weather the storms, whether it's the little storms or the big storms that occur in your life. And if through our daily meditation practice and contemplation, etc., we get better at dealing with difficult situations, then we know we're on the right path. Okay, so that's important for us. Okay, so I've sort of probably talked a lot. And I haven't followed much of what's here, but that's fine. That's just there in case I get lost. Okay, so I think what we should do is a bit of meditation, and then we'll open it up for questions and comments after that. So with meditation, as most of you veterans know, you barnacle-crusted veterans of meditation, we need to have a straight back. That's the main thing. We've got a very deep connection between our physical body and our mind. And within our mind, we also have subtle energy channels and energy and winds, and the mind rides on those winds. So when the channels are straight, the most central channel is straight, our mind will also be clearer. And what we're trying to do is bring our mind in a bit, and actually bring our mind into the central channel. That's actually very hard, but we at least bring our mind in a little bit and switch off from the external distractions. So normally when we do meditation, we want a nice quiet environment to reduce the external sensory stimuli. We'll almost close our eyes. We don't close our eyes entirely because we're more prone to falling asleep, but just allow a glimmer of light in. We want our head tilted forward very slightly as well. We'll place our hands right on top of the left with the two thumbs touching and sitting in our lap. So the thumbs are roughly about 3 finger widths below your navel. So that's becoming technical information. And we want the elbows slightly up from the body to allow some airflow. And the tip of your tongue is touching, I guess, the roots of your top teeth. And when we do that, that means our mouth won't dry out too much, and nor will we end up drooling, which might be a bit uncomfortable. So we want, okay, so what we're going to do is just focus on feeling that your body is grounded. You are connected with the floor and the earth. Just get that sense of connection with the floor and the earth first of all. You've got a nice straight back. You may or may not be tense, but the tension will, given time, slowly drop off as we begin to relax. Now, once we've got our awareness fixed on our connection with the ground and the earth, and we feel comfortable that way, we'll then bring our awareness to our breath. And we're not trying to regulate our breath here at all, we're just being aware of the breath, the subtle movement of the air, wind energy, air energy, passing in through our nostrils, and at the same time, our awareness of our abdomen moving up and down. So we're doing breathing from the abdomen, not shallow chest breathing. And that will help clear our lungs a bit as well. So I'll just get you to focus on that for a minute or two. And if your mind wanders off, that's absolutely not a problem. Once you become aware of it, just bring it back to being focused on the breath. So now that we're feeling more grounded and we're more connected with our breath, we're going to go through a process of doing some physical relaxation of our body. So I want you to bring your awareness to your feet and toes. Just tension them up slightly and then allow them to completely relax. And any tension that's there, we can imagine that as dark light or dark objects completely leaving that part of our body and disappearing. Then we can move our awareness to the lower part of our legs, so the shin bone, the calf muscle, and then tension up or tighten up the muscle, relax it, and then any tension or darkness we feel there, just allow that completely dissolve and disappear or dissipate. Next, we bring our awareness to our thigh bone and the muscles in that area. Again, tighten them up and then allow them to completely relax. And any tension that might be in that part of our body, to release that tension and allow it to completely dissolve and disappear. So that tension just drains out of that part of our body. Now let's shift our awareness, our attention to the lower portion of our torso, the hip area, and tighten up our various muscles in that area, then allow them to relax and let go of any tension or pains or aches in that body. Just allow them to completely drain away and dissipate, so that part of our body feels completely relaxed. Now let's bring our awareness to our abdomen. Tighten up all those stomach muscles. Allow them to relax. And again, let go of any tension or anxiety or worry that might be residing in that part of our body. Just allow it to dissolve and dissipate. Now we bring our awareness to the rib cage and the heart and the lungs. Again, tighten up the muscles in that area. Again, just completely relax those muscles in that part of our body, and any tension or tightness that might be there. Just let go of that tension or tightness. Allow it to relax, allow it to dissolve and dissipate. Now let's move our awareness to our shoulders. Feel the tension that is probably in our shoulders. Tighten up and then relax. And then really, to as much as possible, let go of the tension in our shoulders. Just allow it to drain away and to at least soften. Just allow that tension to in our shoulders to completely dissolve. Now let's move our awareness to our arms and hands. Tighten up those muscles, then allow them to relax. And again, let go of any tension that's there. Now we'll move our awareness to our neck and our head. Be aware of any tension, for example, around the face, maybe headache, tension, tightness in the neck, and just allow these to relax and let go of any of that tension or tightness that might be there. Just allow those things to completely dissolve and disappear. Now let's bring our awareness to our full body, but this time to dissolve the sense of solidity of our body. So let go of the sense of the boundaries of our body and imagine it's a body of light with no solidity and no real boundaries. Just warm, clear light. And especially our heart, a sense of warmth and a sense of clarity, pervading every part of our body and mind. And we just allow ourselves to sit in that space for a while. So when we're ready, bring our awareness back to the breath. When we're ready, we can open our eyes and be aware of our surroundings again. Do we feel more revived and calm now? Good. Okay, we've got about a dozen minutes or so left. Is there any questions or comments that anyone wants to ask or talk about? That's okay. I think the meditation is quite strong. And it pulls out of that thinking mind, which is nice.
Can I ask you about the following month? Will you spend other 3 Mondays with us?
Look, I've got hearing aids and they're in need of repair, so I'm having terrible trouble understanding what you're saying. Sorry.
May I ask you for the plan for the month? Will you spend 3 other Mondays with us? Or there will be another lecture?
Okay, so next week a guy called Jeremy.
Okay.
I'm away, and the week after that I'll be back again. That's the last one for December.
Oh, okay.
Then the program, yes, there's only 3 this month. Yeah. And the last time here was September, but there were 5 in a row. We just started on the 1st. And apparently we've got a Christmas break. You think we should ban the Christmas break and keep going?
Do you know a theme, a topic for every Monday, or it's random?
Look, this month's newsletter hasn't come out. What I did, because I wrote my little blurb, and I talked about, look, just this idea, Christmas can be an interesting time for us, and there are a few challenges there. I know there are some techniques within Buddhism that can help calm our mind or deal with Christmas if it's difficult. So I'll sort of cover a little bit of that tonight, hopefully. Yeah, sort of talking about, I guess, Christmas from a Buddhist point of view, and just, I guess, the idea, okay, that we, rather than Christmas being responsible for our happiness or unhappiness, is really what's going on in here that's responsible for that. And then, of course, we finished off with a nice meditation as a way to calm our mind, which sort of shows us that if we keep doing it, we actually have some control over what's happening in our life. And we can make choices about how we operate and how we deal with difficult situations. And if we've got a more calm, open mind, then it's easy for us to deal with difficult situations. And look, the difficult situations can be anything. It doesn't have to be Christmas, of course. Hopefully everyone will have a nice, joyful, happy Christmas. And look, I remember years ago, before I had kids, I used to would go and do a retreat at the end of the year for a short time, and I went to a place for a while under Lama Zopa's advice. I went to a centre called Mahamudra Centre in New Zealand, which is a very beautiful part of New Zealand, North Island, Coromandel Peninsula. And I'd get there, you'd finish work, say 19th or 20th December, hop on a plane a couple of days later, right, get to Auckland and travel there. It would be a couple of days before Christmas. So I always had the thought, I should have Christmas and good, I should hang around in some retreat after Christmas. And it's, it sort of wasn't that bad. It was okay, but it wasn't that magical either. In the end, I just thought, this is silly. So I'd start retreat straight away and just do Christmas retreat. But what I would do, I'd try and make a special day. So I'd take the 8 Mahayana precepts for that day and try and dedicate to other beings and all that sort of stuff. So I did my Christmas like that for a few years. I thought that was nice. That was a nice thing to do. And I know, for example, in Bendigo, at a teacher centre, they normally run a retreat either Boxing Day or the day after, up until New Year's Day, like a residential retreat. So, that's also a really nice thing to do. I know this year there's a nun called Seifel who's really, really good, who'll be leading it. But look up the teachers on the website and you can see that. So that's something, because the problem is if you start the retreat before Christmas, a lot of people say you've got such strong family obligations, you just can't escape. But you can escape afterwards, as long as you get permission. Or if you're a single person, who cares? You can do what you like. Yes?
Sorry, you mentioned that you have children.
Yes.
Did you teach them how to meditate, or did you try to involve them into meditation practices, etc.?
Okay, so I have 2 children. One's 25, one's 22. We certainly brought them along here to a certain degree. We brought them to the kids from the Dharma Club. We tried to encourage them in that way. Did try and teach them meditation, but they've got their own minds, their own lives. And if I look at my own thing, I was brought up in a Christian culture. And so I was taken to church every Sunday. So my mother was a church organist. There was Sunday school. I then got packed off to boarding school. I was 9 and a half. We had church on Sunday morning. We had Sunday school Sunday afternoon. schools in those days always had religious education, which was on the only break up which denomination you were once a week. But look, it didn't touch me. For my personality, it didn't touch me. And even when I was at uni, I lived in a theological college with theological students. They didn't have enough theological students that had normal uni students, such as myself. And even then, it didn't touch my heart. The time when I hit Buddhism, for me, for my personality, that's what fitted and what suited me. Right? But I have to say that, yeah, for me, Buddhism is the right thing. Yeah, for my kids, they sort of would see themselves as Buddhists, but they probably a little bit, have some big faith in the philosophy, would, I guess, see themselves culturally as Buddhists, or show up to pujas now and then. We've certainly dragged them on to meet every Lama possible, so they get the blessings of meeting these various Lamas. But look, they've got to some extent work it out themselves. And I must admit, I did say to my youngest daughter, I think, if you ever want to go to Kopan, I'll pay for it. And she said, oh, that sounds like a good idea. If it's anything that sounds like a free overseas trip, she will go for. But I haven't got there yet. But if you have 1 month of Kopan, you're probably not going to escape. I should say that in a nice way. But look, it's got to suit your personality in terms of how you operate. So, Buddhism isn't out to convert people. I know, for example, one of the Kopan courses I was at, there was a Catholic monk who'd been sent from the Vatican to attend that course. And look, he was very open, and obviously so he's learned meditations. So, for example, Catholicism, they meditate on death and impermanence. Buddhism has very, very strong meditation on death and impermanence. And if you're really keen, I could spend all of 2 weeks' time talking about that and nothing else, which you may not be tired. That might be challenging, but the irony is if you meditate on a lot, it actually gives you joy. That's something to think about, isn't it? It'll give you more joy. And should you have a situation with someone, you come to a situation, look, you've got this or that, it's sort of not unexpected. It doesn't become a drama or a problem if someone says, look, you've got cancer or you've got this disease or whatever. If you've had that years and years of meditating on death and impermanence every day, recollecting it, it's a different experience. As you expect it. So it's not a surprise. Also, your priorities are different. If you've got the more awareness you have of death and impermanence, then our priorities are not so much focused on me, and the immediate small problems, like if the shower's too cold or too hot. So that's rather minor in the big picture of things. You're just one person among millions. This is happening too. It helps reduce the ego a lot, and the ego causes a lot of problems. So Buddhism has a lot to offer to Catholicism. And there are people who are very strong in interfaith dialogue. And if you look at the Catholic tradition, one of the really strong things about Christianity in general is the whole thing of being socially engaged, which Buddhism doesn't have a history of at all. They have the Christian charities and things like that. Buddhism doesn't have a history of that. So that's something that Buddhism can pick up from Christianity, is that social engagement, for example. So there's lots of things that can be shared. But we don't have to convert people. More help, Dalai Lama is also very clear on this, and also I think Lama Yeshe Lama's over, help people to appreciate their own religion more and be a stronger practitioner. Because we've all got the same end. The end game or the end goal is the same. The philosophy is different, the types of meditations we might use are different, but there are loads of useful meditations that non-Buddhist people can do to help them in life without them becoming Buddhist. Have I said enough? Any other questions or comments?
I have 2 Christian friends who they don't say they meditate, but they pray. They're retired now for an hour and a half each morning. And I think that's very close to meditation, isn't it?
Well, look, if we look in Buddhism, there's listening, there's contemplation, there's meditation. And you've got to listen first, and to someone explaining it, preferably someone who's got the inner experience like Geshe-do, for example, Geshe-do, because that inner experience will have an energy which will convey to you, or to me. So we listen first. Then we ruminate on it, which is the contemplation, the thinking. Or you're reading books about it, and you're trying to sort it out intellectually. And that intellectual process of rumination, contemplation, does have an impact. At a certain point, something's going to happen here. There'll be some sort of intuitive, oh, I get it sort of thing. That's the meditation side. When you get through the thinking process, the contemplation process, you get a psychological shift here. Then when you get that shift, you sit there and you hold it. You just sit in that feeling or that experience of that energy. And then when that energy starts to dissipate, then you can go back to your thinking type stuff to get yourself back into that space again. So it's a 3-step process. Yeah. And really, if you look especially like the monks, like the process system that Geshe-do and Geshe-losang went through, the bulk of their time was spent on listening and debating. In the monastery. Not a lot of time. And as a result of that, the deep meditational experience sort of arose very quickly for them. They didn't have to spend years and years and years in meditation. It was the deep, really deep contemplation and analysis and study and memorisation that got them to that point where they could make the realisations develop very quickly. Yeah. Okay, it's sort of time. I'll hang around for a little while after if anyone's got questions or want to say anything. Then I'll run home and crash. But look, we've had a lovely time tonight. It's been good for me, which is why I like doing this. There's more benefit for me than because I have to think about things I normally wouldn't think about. But we've created some good positive energy. So what we want to do now is to focus or dedicate that energy to something worthwhile. And that most worthwhile thing will be dedicated both to our own development of our own inner qualities and our ability to lead or guide or help others, like within our family, the people we interact with, and ultimately the whole universe, have the same inner experiences, develop the same qualities, to the point where we ultimately become fully awakened beings, that is free of all faults, and all our inner qualities develop to perfection. So just do a quiet dedication on that for a while. Okay, so thank you everyone tonight for coming here and your contribution and participation and all that. Enjoy yourselves, especially if I don't see you have a good Christmas and all that.